Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm going to show you how to transform all of the ingredients you see into a week of meals for my family of 6 in less than 45 minutes. We're going to be making 5 whole dishes and they're going to have plenty of leftovers for lunches. So first I'm going to go ahead and start by prepping my raw meat. I always start with prepping my raw meat because you do not want any cross-contamination with any of your food. You don't want to get sick. So the first recipe that I'm working on is going to be the chicken broccoli ranch bake. It does call for 6 chicken breasts, but the chicken breasts that I got from our wholesale club are quite large, and not only are they large for a person, they're going to take a really long time to cook. So I went ahead and cut them into more manageable sizes, about half, and then I'm going to go ahead and put those in the baking dish. And the second meal that I'm going to be prepping chicken for is the tomato basil chicken bake. And the only thing that goes in before the raw chicken is going to be the cans of diced tomatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and just dump those in that dish. I'm sorry, you can't see it here. You will see it later. And it does ask for 6 chicken cutlets. So I'm just cutting those in half. Again, you just want them to cook a little bit faster. So a trick with meal prepping, or really anything in general, you want to do like things together. So I'm going to be preparing all of my chicken together instead of going between chicken and beef. So just organizing the recipes in that way is going to not only save you time cutting meat and going back and forth, but washing unneeded dishes. I don't know about you, but my least favorite thing to do in the kitchen is washing dishes. So I went ahead and finished up the tomato basil chicken, and I'm going to go ahead and start working on the honey sesame chicken. So this one does also call for 6 chicken breasts, but it is for bite-sized pieces. So I'm just chopping up the rest of the chicken breasts in bite-sized pieces and adding that to that bag. It does call for 6, but again, these are kind of large. I end up using about 5. The bag was getting a little full, and so I just improvised. When cutting, you're going to want to make sure the hand that is holding the knife is always dry for safety purposes. So here I have one hand that is touching the chicken and one hand that is staying dry on the knife. Not only is it going to be safe, but it's going to eliminate that cross-contamination that we talked about earlier. I normally don't show me actually cutting the protein because there's really not a lot to gain from watching me cut protein, but some people did ask how I did it, so I wanted just to go ahead and show it to you. It's a lot of protein, but you know what? I won't have to cut protein the rest of the week, so it'll all be done, so it will all be worth it. So yay, we're done cutting our chicken. I'm going to go ahead and do some TV magic. We're going to wash that cutting board really nice and well, being that we were dealing with raw meat. And then we're going to go ahead and start on completing our first chicken dish. So in the frame, you are going to be seeing the game plan for today on paper. So this is a part of the 5 dinners in 1 hour program. It's going to have all the ingredients. It's going to have all of the recipes and the process. Now, I am fully capable of researching recipes and converting them to my family size and making a whole plan for our week. Now, it takes a lot of time to do that, and lately time is not something I have an abundance of. So I started using this program and I've been using it over a month now, and I absolutely love it. You just go to the website, you select which meals you want to eat that week, and it converts everything for you. It's quite the game changer. Okay, now back to our recipe. So we have the chicken broccoli ranch bake. So you saw me sprinkling some ranch seasoning on top of the chicken, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put some frozen broccoli on top of there. Bacon bits and shredded cheddar cheese. You're seeing me struggle a little bit with the cheddar cheese here. It's a very large bag from a wholesale company, so it's 5 pounds. And of course, when I opened it, it like ripped down the side, and I was trying to hold it with one hand, and it just wasn't working. I wish I would have just ditched the measuring cup and just took handfuls out. So yay, we're done with meal number 1. We are going to be taking a mini field trip outside to pick some fresh herbs for our next meal. I strongly recommend having a herb garden, even if it's small at your house, herbs can become very expensive if you're buying them for each meal, and they're so much better fresh. So if you buy a plant and just take care of it, you will have herbs for a very, very long time. So here I am picking off the leaves of the basil, which you need to do before chopping it up. You could eat the stems and chop them up. They can sometimes be a little bit bitter, and you want to use the highest of ingredients when you're cooking. Since I'm done finally chopping that basil, we're going to go ahead and finish up our tomato basil chicken bake. So this dish was the one earlier where you saw me move the cans of diced tomatoes. I put 2 cans in the bottom of the dish and then added the chicken cutlets right on top. Then I'm going to go ahead and top it with some basil, with some Italian seasoning, and some garlic, and then give it a little bit of a mix. You might be wondering why I chose the aluminum pan for this dish. So this meal is going to be freeze worthy, which means it's going to hold up very well in the freezer. So I don't want to put a normal baking dish in the freezer because it's bulky and I need to be using them on a day-to-day basis anyways. So this disposable aluminum pan not only will work well in the freezer, as well as on cooking day for cleanup, I just throw the pan away. No cleanup necessary. Now, they do sell aluminum lids that you see me using. You can use like heavy duty aluminum foil, but it's not nearly as strong as the aluminum lids. I would strongly recommend just spending a little bit more and getting those sturdy aluminum lids. So make sure you add the rest of the cooking instructions as far as the temperature and the time, and if there's any other ingredients you need to add to the dish, because you know that when you pull it out of the freezer, you're not going to remember what you need to do to finish that dish. And ta-da! You're done with meal number 2. On to meal number 3, honey sesame chicken. Wow, look how nice all that chicken looks that we cut up earlier. I'm very proud of you. So we're going to go ahead and add in honey. Actually, quite a bit of honey. It's in the name. And then we're going to add in some soy sauce. And then some ketchup and minced garlic, as well as some red pepper flakes and olive oil. Now we are almost done with this meal. All we have left is to dice an onion. I went ahead and cleaned off the cutting board because it was still dirty from when we did the basil. And I didn't really want to have basil in this dish that basil did not belong in. Now, I don't think I've ever met anyone who loves cutting or dicing onions. So the trick is just be done as quick as possible and do a good job. So a trick to dicing onions, you're going to go ahead and put those horizontal cuts in the onion, and then you're going to go ahead and do some perpendicular cuts like I'm doing here, not through the other side of the onion, but almost to the root ball. And then you're going to go ahead and cut onion like you normally would, and you're going to go ahead and get the majority of your onion pre-diced. Now there are going to be some pieces by the root that are not going to be diced, so you can just dice that small section, but it's pretty easy. So if cutting onions for you is very uncomfortable, I do have a couple of tricks. You can chew bubblegum, or you can wear swimming goggles, which are quite fashionable, if I do say so myself. You're about to see a pivotal moment here. I'm cleaning up from dicing the onions, and I'm looking at a half onion sitting to the side, and I don't really want to put it back in the fridge and have to dice it later. So I already have my knife cutting board. I'm just going to go ahead and dice the other onion. And then I'm going to put it in a bag, date it, and put it in the freezer for later. So I don't have to cut an onion 1 week. Yay! So fun little story while you're watching me dice this last onion. My mom never had an issue with dicing or cutting onions. She never cried, her eyes never burned, and everyone would always complain, and she thought they were just making a big deal out of nothing. Well, years later, she had LASIK, and now that she doesn't have contacts in her eyes, she now understands the burning sensation of cutting onions. So fun story, if you have contacts, you are probably not experiencing what everyone else is experiencing when cutting onions. And we are done with this bag. So we're going to go ahead and zip it up, give it a shake, and then get as much air out as we can. And then we're going to go ahead and set that aside and work on the last piece of this dish. So we're going to go ahead and get a small bowl that has a lid to it, and we're going to add cornstarch and water into this bowl. Could you do this day of cooking? Yes, you could. It's a pretty simple mixture, but by pre-doing it while you're in the planning mode, it's one less thing you have to think about when you're putting dinner on the table. And you know, if you don't pre-do this, someone is going to be making a random batch of slime or something and using your last cornstarch. Maybe that's just me, but that happens so much in my family. I'll have something and I have a plan for it, but I never told anybody the plan, but they just happen to use it up, and then when I need it, it's not there. We are officially moving on to meal number 4. Are you excited? I'm excited. 3 down, 2 to go. So now we're going to go ahead and work on our hamburger casserole. So as you see, I bought a lot of beef, surprise, surprise, and I have the scale out to see how much meat I'm putting in that bag. So you're going to want to get your scale, you're going to put the bag and the holder on there, and then tear it out so you start at 0. And now I'm going to be weighing the meat for my 5th recipe, the mini meatloaves. So same concept with the chicken. You're going to touch the meat once, keep one hand dry for things that you need to touch that are not the meat, and then one hand on the meat so you can limit the cross-contamination. Now that we're done with the beef, we're going to go ahead and start building that hamburger casserole. So you're going to do the beef, and then I'm actually going to be weighing the spaghetti sauce. I know it sounds so funny, but the jar is a lot larger than what it's asking for, and I would much rather use a scale than go get a measuring cup. So then I'm adding some minced garlic here, and then a whole can of cream of mushroom soup. And we are done with meal number 4. And we are on to the last meal, the mini meatloaves. So first we're going to go ahead and start with some vegetables for our meal. So the recipe calls for broccoli and cauliflower, but we always shop our fridge first. So I found some Brussels sprouts in the fridge. So I went ahead and put those in this bag with some olive oil and some salt and pepper. And we just kind of give them a little bit of a shake. Now moving on to the mini meatloaves. So as you can see, I weighed the meat in the bowl that I'm going to be using to mix the meatloaf. Again, I don't like doing unnecessary dishes, so why make extra dishes? So this is a very simple recipe. So it's going to have panko, salt and pepper, and then you're going to use a little bit of the onion soup mix, and then 2 eggs. Now, personally, I would probably add a little bit more seasonings if it was just me and my husband, but with all of our kids, they love this recipe. And when I say they love this recipe, I mean that everyone goes back for seconds and everyone has a clean plate. So for that reason alone, I will not be changing this recipe for my family. And go ahead and give it a mix with your hands. And as you see, I'm going to go ahead and be adding a little bit more panko. It seemed a little bit wet to me, and I wanted to make sure that it was the right consistency. Now here's the fun part, making the mini meatloaves. So I am going to be making mine square shaped. This is actually a Pampered Chef pan, but you can use any size that you want. You can use a cupcake pan, a mini cupcake pan. You just are going to have to make sure that you're baking it long enough. So I'm going to go ahead and be using a cookie scoop just to make my life a little bit easier to help get the meat a little more even per square. And as you can see, I do have a little bit of meat left, and I am not making a second batch for 1 or maybe 2 squares. So I'm going to go ahead and take that meat that I have left over and just divide it as evenly as possible between the squares. And then you want to make sure that you push it down as well, because it's not really going to spread in the oven very much when you bake it. It's going to stay in the shape that it is when you put it in the oven. And ta-da! You're done with your mini meatloaves. Now you can go ahead and wrap it with saran wrap and put it in the fridge until you are ready to make that meal. Now when I meal prep, I plan to make one of those meals that night. It just works better for me. It's just what I do, which is why I'm not saran wrapping it, and which is also why I accidentally forgot to add it in the next picture. Well, thank you for joining me as I prepped 5 dinners in less than an hour for my family. I hope that you learned some tips, tricks, and some inspiration for you and your family as well. And I hope that you join us back to see how I actually finish these meals and how quick it is. Thank you again for your time, and happy cooking.